What's up everyone, my name's Alpha and today we're back with another Pokemon challenge video. Today we're on Radical Red 4.1 and today's challenge we can beat Pokemon Radical Red 4.1 using a random egg group. So today we actually got the bug egg group, so I don't think I really need to explain what kind of Pokemon are in the bug egg group. So besides that, we're gonna try to beat Radical Red, which is the hardest ROM hack in the world right now, using only the bug egg group. Now I think it's pretty similar to the bug monotype where a lot of the Pokemon overlap. I don't think any Pokemon are excluded from the bug monotype, maybe some that's not directly a bug type, because there's only one non-bug type I believe, and it's actually Flygon as the only non-bug type Pokemon in the egg group, I think. So it's gonna be a difficult challenge. On top of that, each of my Pokemon will be nicknamed after you guys in the comments, so thank you so much for leaving a comment in my previous challenge video. If you just want to be nicknamed after a future Pokemon, just drop in the comments and hopefully I'll pick yours. And while it's down there, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to my channel, it means a lot to me. Anyway, let's get into the challenge video itself. So there's no bug type starter Pokemon. It's kind of unfortunate, so I gotta go out and have a Dwebble as my starter Pokemon basically, and then everything else is gonna be captured in Verdant Forest basically. So we got a bunch of bug type Pokemon in there, and then face off against a few trainers in Verdant Forest. We get the Infinite Repel mod, and then from there we can head into Pewter City and face off against Falkner, which isn't too difficult surprisingly. Even though he has a bunch of flying type Pokemon, it's not too difficult. As you see, we actually handled it pretty well into the last Pokemon. But eventually we do beat down Falkner, and then now we could face off against Brock next. Brock's gonna be the first gym leader in the game. We're gonna start the battle off against him using my Surge Kit against his Hippopotas. We're gonna actually bait out his Elite, which actually worked out kinda. I mean, I had to switch out into my Dwebble. He goes for Recover, I go for Fury Cutter. Eventually, you know what Fury Cutter is. It's gonna always knock out the Elite for us, and lucky enough it didn't get a stockpile up, and it's just gonna hit me. I'm eventually gonna knock out the Elite, which is really good. From there, his next Pokemon's gonna be a Cacnea. I stayed in. Of course I'm gonna stay in. I'm gonna knock out the Cacnea. Unfortunately, I leave him at 1 HP, but that's fine. I go out into my Vivillon, and then Vivillon's able to, that's bad play. Should've went to my Ninjas, but we knock out the Cacnea. The Vroom comes out, I break his air balloon, and then go out to my Trapinch to knock out the Vroom. And from there, the Lunatone comes out, and Lunatone's gonna knock out my Trapinch as I go out into my Surge Kit. Skull would knock out the Lunatone, and we chip down the Arcan actually. We outspeed the Arcan, we do a lot of damage to it. Then we can go out into my Vivillon to sack for some reason. My Rapscallion in the back is able to knock out the Arcan and also chip down Hippopotas and knock him out, as we beat down Brock and get ourselves the first gym badge in the game. Now from there we can move on into Route 4 and clear through all the trainers to make our way into Mount Moon next. It's not a bunch of Pokemon for us to get, actually there's no Pokemon for us to get besides the Yanma, and we can make our way into Mount Moon and face off against the Scientist. He's pretty easy since we have a bunch of bug type Pokemon. We face off against Archer as well, clear him down pretty easily, and head into Serene City afterwards. Now from there we're going to face off against the second gym leader in the game. We're going to face off against Misty. She takes a bit of time, and I had to evolve a lot of different Pokemon, so we're going to start the battle off against Misty using my Levani against her Politoed. I'm going to go for a Grass Whistle immediately, catch the Clockstar, which I didn't really want, but go out to my Rapsca next, and then I go for an extra Sensory, chip him down to low HP as she goes out to her Mantine. At this point I'm like, well, I don't really have a good Pokemon for this, so I go out into my Arachnid, which will go down to 2 Hurricanes from the Mantine. I then go out to my Dwebble, which will live a Skull with Sturdy, and then Rock Blast and knock out the Mantine for us. Okay, it didn't, but my Ninjas will outspeed and knock him out, so lucky enough we got that done. And then the Politoed comes out. I go back out into my Levani to get Poison, which isn't the greatest play. I then go for a Razor Leaf and then switch out into my Ninjas, catching a Toxicroak, by the way. That's very lucky. We knock him out with a dual Wing Beat, and then her next Pokemon will be a Ludicolo. Go out into my Masquerain to Bug Buzz and knock out the Ludicolo. It's gonna go down to the Starmie, but I go out to my Levani, and Levani barely survives an Aurora Beam against the Starmie and then knock him out with a Lunge. We knock out the Politoed as my Levani goes down, and then her final Pokemon will be a Clockstar, which I have my Rapsca in the back, which will extra Sensory and knock him out. So we end up beating down Misty. Things are going pretty good for us, as from there we can move out into the Nugget Bridge, get some more Pokemon, and get ourselves onto the SSN. We're gonna make our way into Vermilion City and then head into the SSN, clear through the Water Trainer and also Brennan in here, which aren't too difficult. From there we can move on into the gym in Vermilion City and face off against Lieutenant Surge next. We're gonna start the battle off against Surge using my Scorch to Inferno knock out the Rotom Frost. I don't know how. From there his next Pokemon's gonna be a Palnut, which is gonna knock out my Scorch. I go into my Orbeetle. Orbito's able to Psychic and knock out a Palnut. Goes down to the Hitmonlee, but I go into my Rapsca next. Extra Sensory into him to knock him out in 2 shots. Force out the Mega Ampharos as I'm able to Mud Shot into him. Go out to my Vibrava, which is in the bug egg group without being a bug. I'm able to Earthquake and knock out the Ampharos. His next Pokemon's gonna be an Electrode. I go out to my Fortress and then I go for a Pounce. As he goes for a Volt Switch, I knock the Raichu down to 1 HP. I go out to my Vibrava to knock out the Raichu and then force out the Electrode. From there, I could go out into my Crustle, which will knock out the Electrode, and we beat down Lieutenant Surge and get ourselves the 3rd gym badge in the game. Now from there, we're going to move out into the rock tunnel and then clear through all the trainers in here, including the final trainer at the end, the little boss trainer. As from there, we're going to move out into Lavender Town and then face off against this trainer to have access into Celadon City, which is really nice for us as there's going to be a lot of Pokemon we evolve. So we actually caught 2 Scythers to evolve them both, and then from there we can move on into the next gym leader in the game. We're going to face off against Erica next. We're going to start the battle off against the Ogerpon, make a U-turn into the Kartana as I go out to my Scorch to knock out the Kartana, which is really nice for us. From there, I go out into my Flygon against the Toxicity, but she's going to switch out into her Slowbro. Kind of annoying as I go back out of my Scorch, do some chip damage as it's going to knock me out. So I go out to my Crustle to knock out the Slowbro with a bunch of Rock Blasts, which works out pretty well for us. Then I go out into my Scizor against the Hawlucha, which will Psycho Cut, and then it works out and knocks him out. As from there, her next Pokemon will be a Toxicity. I go out to my Flygon, outspeed him to Earthquake him, and then the Ogerpon comes out. I go out to my Scizor once again to Bullet Punch into him. It's going to knock him down to low HP, but unfortunately, it still knocks out my Scizor. I go out into my Fortress, which will Heavy Slam and knock out the Ogerpon, and then the final Pokemon on her team will be a Sceptile. Actually didn't even knock out my Fortress. I'm able to explode and knock out the Sceptile, and we beat down Erica. Get ourselves the 4th gym badge in the game. As from there, we're gonna make our way all the way down into the game corner in Celadon City and face off against the Team Rocket members down here. We're gonna make our way all the way down to face off against Giovanni, which isn't too difficult. We actually clear him down pretty easily, and then from there we can make our way into Lavender Tower, which again wasn't too difficult. We also face off against a rival in Silphco to beat him down, and then face off against Archer and Ariana in this double battle fight with also Brennan as our teammate. And Brennan's always the worst, but eventually we get him through. We beat down Ariana and Archer with our squad as we face off against Giovanni once again. We beat down Giovanni, which very interesting team we have, I'm not gonna lie, but eventually we beat down Giovanni, and then we can make our way into the Saffron City Dojo. We're face off against Chuck and then clear through Chuck and get ourselves the Focus Sash from him, and also the Expert Belt. The Expert Belt is kind of underrated as an item to use. As from there, we're gonna move on and face off against Sabrina. Sabrina's gonna be the 5th gym leader in the game. She also has infinite Misty Terrain and infinite Trick Room, so we gotta be very careful as my first Pokemon against her will be an Arachnid and also my Volbeat. Volbeat goes for a Detect, and I'm going to knock out the camera, forcing out the Misty Explosion from the Tapu Fini. We take that as a 1-for-2 trade. Then I'm going to go out to my Cricket Pokemon. I don't really remember his name. It doesn't really matter as I'm able to Sucker Punch into the Jellicent and then Helping Hand to knock out the Jellicent for sure. So that's the only time I'll ever use them. Then I go out to my Volcarona to go for a Heat Wave against the Magearna and also the Glacier. We knock out the Magearna, which is amazing. Go out to my Scizor to Bullet Punch and knock out the Glacier, and then we just got a double attack against the Iron Hands. Eventually we knock him out as we beat down Sabrina. Then we're gonna make our way down the Cycling Road, which we're gonna clear through and make our way into Fuchsia City. We're also gonna face off against Brendan in front of the Safari Zone. We're gonna have access into the Safari Zone, and then we're gonna be forced to go back and face off against the first 3 gym leaders in the game. We're gonna face off against Brock. Not too difficult. We face off against Misty. It's a lot harder, but eventually we get it done. And then finally we face off against Lieutenant Surge, which is a lot more difficult. My team's able to survive as I have a Mega Beat Drone now. As we're ready to beat down Lieutenant Surge and make our way into Koga's gym next. So against Koga, our plan was to actually start the battle off against him using my Orbeetle, and Orbeetle is able to Mirror Coat into the Tapu Lele, then go for Hypnosis, catch the Shiyu on accident, and then go for a Rock Blast with my Crustle, and Crustle is able to knock out a Shiyu for us. As from there, his next Pokemon is going to be Needle King. I decided to go out to my Flygon and then go out to my Orbeetle. I don't know why. I gotta sack something. I decided to sack my Orbeetle, go out into my Frostmoth to Blizzard and knock out the Needle King. From there, his next Pokemon is going to be a Toxicity. As I sacrifice my Frostmoth, I go out into my Flygon to Earthquake and knock out a Toxicity. His next Pokemon is going to be a Hoopa Unbound, which I go out to my Fortress, which will survive any move with Sturdy. I'm able to lunge at him and knock out the Hoopa Unbound. His next Pokemon is going to be a Tapu Lele, which I survive a Side Shock from him, and then I'm able to lunge and knock him out. As his final Pokemon is going to be a Crocodile. I gave him the Moxie, but I got my Cleaver in the back with a Focus Sash and counter to knock him out. So we end up beating down Koga, and yeah, that's pretty good. We go out to Seaphone Island, get ourselves the Choice Scarf, and then face off against May on Cinnabar Island. Nothing too difficult, as eventually we're able to knock her out and then head into the next gym in the game. So from there, we're going to face off against Blaine's gym trainers. It shouldn't be difficult as we clear him down and then face off against Blaine himself. We're going to start the battle off against Blaine using my Levani with Chlorophyll now, and we're able to Grass Whistle into him as he goes out to his Ho-Oh, which is kind of annoying. I go out to my Cleavor, I go for a Stone X as he goes out into his Great Tusk. I'm like, oh, that's not a great play. See my Volcarona next, which will Heat Wave and knock out the Great Tusk after taking a close combat. From there, his next opponent is going to be a Walking Wake. I sack my Bulk to it as I go out into my Levani. Levani did not do anything as well, but I got to my Beedrill next, which will knock out the Walking Wake for us. And then from there, I sacrifice my Beedrill. I go out to my Crustle next, which will Rock Blast into the Venusaur twice to knock him out. And then from there, his next opponent is going to be a Standing Shock. It's going to knock out my Crustle as I go out into my Flygon. Flygon's able to Dragon Rush, flinch the Standing Shock actually, and then we're able to two-shot into him afterwards. And we take minimum damage. From there, his next opponent is going to be a Mega Charizard X, as I actually just Dragon Rush and knock him out as well. From there, his next opponent is going to be a Ho-Oh. I dodged one of my Dragon Rush, but I'm able to just Dragon Rush into him once again. Eventually chip him down, and then he's going to knock me out. I got to my Cleavor to a Cell Rock and knock him out as we beat down Blaine and get ourselves the 7th gym badge in the game pretty easily. So from there, we can make our way back into Cerulean Cave afterwards and face off against Archer and Ariana. We cleared through Archer and Ariana pretty easily, as you can see. You can imagine my team is pretty solid, I can't lie. Eventually, we were able to beat him down and then face off against Giovanni himself with my Drapion and my Volcarona and my Beedrill. We're able to clear down pretty easily as we beat down Giovanni, and yeah. Next up, we're going to face off against Clair next. We're going to start the battle off against Clair using my Excalibur, which is going to go for an Iron Head and actually flinch down a Shuckle. And then from there, it's going to go out to an Ultra Necrozma, which I should have gone for a Mega Horn, but unfortunately, I don't have Mega Horn. I have X-Scissor. I don't knock on the Ultra Necrozma as she's going to switch out into her Archidon. I got into my Flygon. Flygon's able to do some nice damage, leaving that at 1 HP as I got to my Volcarona next. Psychic to knock out the Archidon as the next opponent is going to be a Roaring Moon. I go out into my Excalibur once again, and this thing's such a tank. I'm able to double Iron Badge twice to knock out the Roaring Moon, and then from there, force out the Eternatus. Go down to a Dynamax Cannon, but I'm going to switch out into my Frostmoth, which will survive the Meteor Beam and then Mirror Coat into him to knock him out. And then from there, the Magearna comes out. It's going to knock out my poor Frostmoth, but my Volk in the back will Heat Wave and one-shot the Magearna, and also chip down a Shuckle for us as we beat down a Shuckle, and then her final opponent will be a Necrozma. It's going to knock out my Volcarona, but I have Cleavor in the back with a Cell Rock to knock him out. So we end up beating down Clair, and now we can move on. So we're going to face off against our rival in Route 22, and also 23 against Brendan, which isn't too difficult as well. So from there, we can make our way into the Victory Road and then head into the Elite Four. My final preparations for my team is gonna look for better moves. I'm looking for a knockoff for my Beedrill. Don't know where it goes, but my team's gonna consist of not Ninjas, but Scizor, Volcarona, Frostmoth, Cleavor, Crustle, and also Mega Beedrill. So it's going to be an interesting set of Pokemon as we're going to face off against Lorelei next. Lorelei is going to be the first Elite Four member in our final rundown of the challenge. We're going to start the battle off against Lorelei's Ice Team using my Beedrill and also Volcarona. I'm going to go for a U-turn on the first turn with my Beedrill and a Heat Wave with my Volcarona to actually knock out the Glaceon, which is really nice. From there, I go out to my Cleavor as she goes out to her Bomb Stone and Tapu Fini. I go for a Stone Axe and then, well, I mean, Volcarona can take care of the Bomb Stone pretty easily. From there, I'm going to chip down the Landers a little more as eventually she switched out into her Kyurem White. I leave the Tapu Fini on low HP as I go out to my Scizor next. I'm going to go for another quick Heat Wave and then chip down the Kyurem White. The Kyurem White is going to knock out my Scizor, but we do knock out her Tapu Fini as I go out into my Frostmoth to Blizzard and also Heat Wave. We eventually end up knocking out the Landorus and also Kyurem White. As for final opponent will be a Shinpao, which we just Heat Wave and Blizzard to knock out. So we beat down Lorelei without too much issues at all. From there, we're going to face off against Bruno next. Bruno's giving me the second Elite Four member and also the fighting type Elite Four member. We're going to start the battle off against him using my Volcarona. Volcarona's able to go for a Hurricane against the Urshifu, but unfortunately, he doesn't get confused and he's going to hit me with a Wicked Blow, but we eventually knock him out with a second Hurricane. From there, I decided to go out to my Cleavor and then sack it for some reason. Go out to my Scizor next to counter and to knock out a Zacian. From there, I'm able to Bullet Punch into the Necrozma Dustmane. He's going to knock me out, but I go out into my Beedrill next to U-turn into him as activates his weakness policy, but he's still slower than me, especially since I have a Scarf on, so Volcarona is able to Heat Wave and knock out the Necrozma. From there, his next opponent is going to be a Hawlucha, which I decided to switch out into my Crustle, survive 2 close combats, and then Rock Record to knock out the Hawlucha. The Iron Valiant comes out, it's going to knock out my Crustle, but I do have my Frostmoth in the back to go for a Mirror Coat and knock out the Iron Valiant, and then chip down the Medicham as I go into my Beedrill to U-turn into the Medicham, and then switch out into my Volcarona, eventually knock him out with a second U-turn as we beat down Bruno. And now comes the hard part after we beat Bruno. We're going to face off against Agatha. We're going to start the battle off against Agatha using my Volcarona to eventually Hurricane and Confusion into the Krookodile to avoid any rocks. And then from there, it always switched out, so I go out to my Cleavor next. Cleavor is able to go for a Stone Axe. Barely do any damage against the Yveltal, I'm not gonna lie. It's gonna knock out my Cleavor. The Yveltal is gonna knock out my Cleavor as I go out into my Beedrill. Beedrill knocks out the Yveltal for us, but unfortunately it goes out to her Calyrex. I go out to my Volcarona, which actually survives the Expanding Force, and then I'm going to go for a Heat Wave, chip it down to low HP. but eventually he's gonna knock me out as I go out into my Scissor. Scissor survives an Astral Barrage and a Night Slash to knock him out. From there, next Pokemon is gonna be a Victini. He's gonna knock out my Scissor. As from there, I go out to my Crustle next. Crustle's able to Rock Wrecker and knock out the Victini, and then Bodo's into the Mewtwo X, which for some reason just kept going for bulk ups as I'm able to go out into my Frostmoth, Blizzard to knock out the Mewtwo X, and then from there, Miracle into the Fluttermane to knock him out as well. And then final opponent will be a Crocodile as I go out into my Beedrill. Beedrill pin missiles and knock out the Crocodile for us as we beat down Agatha, and we can move on afterwards. So from there, we're going to move on and face off against Lance next, the 4th Elite Four member, the Dragon Specialist, as we start the battle off against him using my Volcarona once again. We're looking for the Hurricane into Confusion, hit itself, and then Psychic to knock him out. So eventually we get it, a bunch of RNG happens, and eventually we get Psychic off and knock out the Glimmora. From there, his next opponent is going to be a Dragonite as I go out into my Crustle next to Rock Blast into him, hoping it will kill, but I only get 3 hits. From there, he actually switched out into his Dialga for some reason, so I go for Bodos against him. He's gonna knock me out with a Flash Cannon. I go out into my Volcarona, Heat Wave into him, didn't work. I go out into my Beedrill to Drill Run and shipping down a little, and eventually he's gonna Roar Time me out into my Volcarona once again. I get a crit on my Heat Wave to knock out a Dialga, and then force out the Arceus Fairy, which also has Flamethrower, so I gotta be very careful. As from there, I go out to my Frostmoth to Mirror Code into him. I have a Focus Sash, and I'm able to survive against the Arceus. We knock him out pretty easily, and then from there, I'm gonna go out to my Beedrill. Beedrill is able to bait out the Rayquaza as I go out into my Volcarona, looking for the Flame Body. It actually works out for us. Flame Body the Rayquaza. Then I go out and sack my Beedrill as I go out to my Kleavor. Kleavor is able to knock down the Rayquaza to 1 HP, and then go out to my Scissor to Bullet Punch and knock out the Rayquaza. Why did I switch out? What? I didn't Bullet Punch? Oh, so I get a free switch into the Melmetal, which is nice. I almost knock out the Melmetal with my Volcarona, but I go out into my Scissor next to Bullet Punch into him, survive the double Iron Bash, and then eventually knock out the Dragonite as well. We eventually beat down Lance, and then from there, the final battle in the game, we're gonna face off against a rival Blue, using my Crustle as the lead Pokemon. Crustle, Rock Blast, didn't do a lot of damage. Then I go out to my Beedrill, which will actually pin Missile and 4 times and knock out the Primal Kyogre. As from there, his next opponent is going to be the Arceus. I go out into my Scissor next, and then I kept going for Swords Dance as eventually I made a Bullet Punch and knock out the Arceus Extreme Killer. His next opponent is going to be an Ultra Necrozma, which I'm like, I don't want to lose my Pokemon, so I go out into my Beedrill once again, and Beedrill gets an amazing 4 hits to knock out the Ultra Necrozma with his Adaptability Pin Missile. From this, can force out the Mega Swampert as I U-turn, go out to my Scissor once again, take an Earthquake, which isn't great, but Bullet Punch into him, and then go out into my Beedrill. Pin Missile again, actually hits and knocks out the Swampert, 3 more hits, and then from there, the Walking Wake comes out. I'm gonna go for a U-turn because this thing is broken. Mega Beedrill on the map. I go out into my Kleavor. We chip down the Walking Wake and chip down the Eternatus. I then go out into my Volcarona, which was Psychic, and knock out the Eternatus for us. As his final opponent will be a Walking Wake, I go out into my Beedrill to Pin Missile once again to knock out the Walking Wake as we beat down Blue and clear through the challenge very easily. You know, it still took a long time because they're bug type Pokemon, but a lot of times I wasn't really stuck anywhere. I think I fell asleep for most of the parts, I'm not gonna lie, but I was having a lot of fun through this challenge because Mega Beedrill is just so fun to use. Scizor is really fun, Crustle is always reliable, and Kleavor is like one of my favorite Pokemon because it's just so good. But honestly, that was a pretty fun challenge. I hope you guys all enjoyed this video. That'll be it for me today. Thanks so much for watching. Again, I hope you guys all enjoyed the video. If you guys can, please leave a like and subscribe to my channel. It means a lot to me. Anyways, my name is Alpha, and I hope you guys all had a great day, and I'm out. Peace.